Welcome to Empowering the Next Generation podcast. I am Helen Veru. This podcast is dedicated to help anyone connected to preteens and teens to give them tools, empower and inspire teachers, high school senior leaders, and parents to build the future leaders of tomorrow. We discuss about controversial and relevant topics related to the world of education, the main problems you are facing, and solutions to help you navigate your journey. We want to make a positive change in education by bringing on experts that will give you a different perspective on how you can solve the hardship you are facing today. Awesome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Empowering the Next Generation podcast with me, Coach Helen. I'm so glad that you're here watching with us this amazing podcast. We have an amazing guest speaker. Her name is Dr. Nakia Avery, and she is an educational consultant. She's also a strategist in education. And today she will talk about really how to create a high performing solutions in your school community. So what is she doing really in the world that we are doing right now in education? She has been a strategist for 17 years. A teacher, a counselor, an administrator, and also a consultant. She specializes in strengthening school systems, improving student outcome, and advancing special education leadership, compliance, and literacy initiatives. Her work leads to identifying sustainable solutions, unlocking funding opportunities, and building high-impact learning environments that support long-term organizational success. So welcome on board, Dr. Nakia.
Good morning, everyone. Good to be here. Thank you, Helen, for
I
asking me to
am
be a part.
so glad you're here. You have so much wisdom to share with the audience today. And in this podcast, we are here to really help educators to shift their mindset into entrepreneurship, to help them grow and ignite their school community. So you've worked across multiple roles in education. A
Yes, I have.
teacher, counselor, administrator, and now you're a consultant, which is amazing. So what initially drew you into education, and how did that journey lead you into consulting and systems work with schools?
Well, I will say that it has been a long journey. Um, in high school, I did want to teach and get into education, but sometimes you do other things because you just really don't know. So I've tried quite a few things. And I was in finance for many years, banking and accounting for about 12 years prior to me getting into education. My first role in education was an instructor for Lenore Community College. And with me working at the community college, we were contract to work with one of the local prisons. There were three in the area, medium and minimum security prisons. And while teaching, after teaching a group of men, and I had only been there at that particular time for about 2 or 3 months, I looked outside of my door. And, the only part of the door that we have is the small square area. And I'm watching all of these gentlemen go back and forth. And I'm thinking to myself, what was it that got them here? And oftentimes we say, well, you know what it was that got them there. It was some behavior, criminal behavior that got them there. But that was not the deep-rooted question I was asking. What I was asking was, what in their lives, what part of their growing up, what part of their youth or adult life got them to where they were? And the reason why I asked that after 2 or 3 months of being in education as a human resource development instructor and cognitive behavior interventionist instructor, was that I had an array of students. I had bank tellers in my class, bank managers in my class. I had retired grandfathers in my class. And so that question was the overarching question that caused me to take a step forward into the education realm. I wanted to do something about the school to prison pipeline. Okay. And so then I went on to becoming a teacher certified teacher's assistant. And in this teacher's assistant role, I was also an in home parent trainer. So after work, 2, 3 days a week, I will work with parents in their home,
Mm,
working with students. And, these students are considered students with needs, some with behaviors, and some had an array of disabilities. And it was to help with the behaviors of the school of the student. They wanted to make a connection from school to home, home to school, thinking that this would be an intervention for their behaviors.
mm,
And so, working with those students as a teacher's assistant while getting my teacher certification, I learned some very important things. And those things were the involvement of parents, which is key. And we're going to come back around to the involvement of parents
yes, definitely.
and educators involving the parent, incorporating it into the education setting and the things that actually happen and go on as far as the education of the child is concerned. We're going to come back to that. But while I was doing that, I was considering and I was thinking about that same question that I had. What caused those individuals to be in the setting that they were in, incarcerated? And as I watched children, I watched their behaviors. I watched those who their leaders were in education. And then I also took in note and I watched the parents and parents' involvements and how education system involved those parents into um, the education. Okay. So it's a big piece that I just observed over the years. And so I became a uh, teacher working with students who were had emotional disturbance or behavior challenges. And then they also had maybe another disability. But these were students you could not look at and say, oh, this is what's happening with the students. So sometimes um, individuals will be a little harder on them because they say that, well, they know better. They just need, discipline or that type of thing. And when I looked at that type of setting, I said, I'm not at the beginning of what it is. My question is, this is still not answering my question because at this point, the children had ankle monitors. And not only was I working with them as an educator uh, to get them graduated, I was also working with their probation officers. And I thought to myself, I still don't have my question answered. So after
mhm,
some years of working as a special education teacher, case manager, and also we created lessons at base level for these students. So they had to attempt, the high schoolers had to attempt the work that the teachers were giving them, as well as assignments that were at their level, and the grades will be um, culminated together and averaged so that they could get their diploma and we could help them to get graduated. This was the first time that students had graduated in this program because many dropped out. And so I went on to be a school counselor and I said, I need to go just a little bit lower to see what is happening and what is going on with individuals where they begin to sometimes make these adults. And we understand that sometimes people say environment, socioeconomic displacement or disadvantages or things of that nature, but I wanted to go a little bit lower because I still wanted my question answered. I still wanted to be a part of the change. And so I went to the elementary level, and there I found my question answered. And from there, I did a lot of research because it went along with my school. I pretty much kind of stay in school. If it's not some kind of certification, it's another degree.
mhm,
I just really enjoy research. And so all of the things that it encompassed and the research that it encompassed, it allowed me to answer that question. How we get from school to prison. What is that pipeline that so many young people are going into? And so I had all of the pieces at that time. And that is my developmental process right now that I help educators with as a consultant. So when I go out and I'm speaking with educators, I am coming from the teacher aspect. I am coming from the school counselor aspect. I am coming from the parent aspect of it. And I am coming from that concerned, individual who wants to bring change. And so I've identified four main things that must happen and that schools must look at before they say, oh, we're going to change the nature of this school. We're going to change the behaviors. We're going to change the academics. Oftentimes,
Mm.
they are focusing on the academics and changing the academics and teaching the teachers. The teachers have been taught, but they have not been taught to deal with all of these things.
I
And so that's
totally
what got
agree.
me into, I know that was response might have been kind of long, but that's what got me into education, seeking out, researching, and coming up with solutions. I'm a solution focused strategist. And if there is a problem, oh, we're going to get down to the root and the bottom of it. And so
I
I've
love
been
it.
blessed. God has blessed me with the wisdom, as your program is based on the wisdom in education, bringing that wisdom back, not just having a problem, but knowing how to solve the problem, not just having a problem and saying, oh, it's the parent's fault. Oh, it's the teacher's fault. Everybody is pointing the finger to someone else because they are at a loss of what to do. God has blessed me with the strategy.
I love that. And I feel it's so needed to have people like you in the educational system because you don't just have the head knowledge. You have wisdom. You come with
Yes,
something that can make a difference. And me, I'm so into transformation. I really want to make a difference in education. And I feel that you have many people who just know so many things, but does it really create
yes,
change and effectiveness? And I love your heart to really be part of the solution for this generation. So you focus on sustainable solutions rather than quick fixes. So
yes.
what's one practical strategy or shift that school leaders could implement right away to start and strengthening their systems and improving outcomes?
Right away, one strategy, and I'm going to tell you, everyone says, well, we know what they're going to do. They're not going to support, and they have a lot of negatives. But your support comes from your parents. I've been doing research for the past 6 years looking at the role of leaders. And we talk about many roles, we talk about many things that they do. And these are individuals, are district level. And if they're not district level, they're leadership within the school system. And I've been talking with them. And one thing that keeps coming up that still needs a lot of work is the parent school engagement.
Wow.
In the US right now, we have a 66% illiteracy rate. Many of them are functional illiterate, meaning having at least a sixth grade education. And then there are those who just cannot read pretty much at all. Okay. How do we fix that? Some people say the science of literacy. Some individuals say more interventions for students. We go all around, but we miss who are the most influential people in a child's life. When that
Mm,
child is 1 years old, 2 years old, 3 years old, and so forth and so on, it is the parent. The mother
mm,
can read stories. Scientifically, it's been proven that a mother can read stories to her child while the child is in the womb.
mm,
And the child is learning, if they're learning tone, they're learning their mother's voice. Okay. So
mm,
when that child is born and you begin to read to that child, you begin to show that child pictures of words at 1 years old, 2 years old. Just like a phone, a 2 or 3 year old child can pick up a phone and they know how to go in and function it, and you've not taught them anything. It's because they've seen you do it. They seen you do it while they were very young. Okay. Same thing with literacy and reading. If
Mm,
we work with our parents, that's one way, that is a preventive way to prevent illiteracy. That's one
mm,
way, is that we help the parents understand the importance of reading and reading to their child at very young ages and then supporting their education once they get into the school system. Because who are our greatest participants when we say we're going to have a parent meeting, a function at the school? It is the parent who has a kindergarten or first grader. They're going to show up. And then educators will tell you as the child gets older, you see the lack of participation in the parent. We have to do the interventions very young. Okay. And then on the back end of that, I learned even children in high school, you can get their parents involved. You know, I will let that parent know that your child is capable and they can do more. And I have
mm,
an expectation that we're going to have a partnership and a relationship together. And I invite that parent in. I work with behavior students and I will call that parent and say, I need for you to come out and see what Johnny is doing. I
mm,
had students who were throwing trash cans over balconies and riding bikes through the school and doing all sorts of things, walking in classrooms, doing all sorts of things. And I said, not on my watch. Because we
mm,
as educators, we do have power and I will not relinquish my power to a child. I
mm,
will not relinquish my power to a child, and I'm giving them the ability to run around and do what they want to do when I know what's out here for them, when I
mm,
know what trouble will cause them. That
mm.
school to prison pipeline, not on my watch, not any of my students. You know what I mean? So I take it
I,
personal. And we
I
have to
totally
understand that
agree.
we do have a power that we don't have to relinquish.
I agree with you, and I feel that it all comes as well with healing. I feel like you in that state of your life where you understand healing, you've healed, you've done the work. However, there are a lot of parents out there who don't really understand how to connect with themselves as well. So
That's right.
because there is a lack of self-awareness, I feel like sometimes they cannot cope. Sometimes they cannot even cope with their own life. So
Yes.
how much more can they cope with their kids' life? And I
Yes.
think there is such a groundwork to be done where we really bring wholeness into schools and we
That's right.
bring parents that sense of self-awareness, that sense of self-leadership. Because as you were saying, kids see what their parents are doing, but if the parent is not growing into leadership, then
That's
it
right.
will always be the same cycle. So even before I became an educational consultant, I was working with parents about helping them to raise purpose-led teens. And I feel like purpose, all of these kind of, I would say, concepts it is only learned through self-awareness and understanding how you can change the mindset of your child. So um it comes with a I would say a bigger understanding of where the parents are in their journey. And we need more leaders who are, I would say, tuned into the insights of something of the invisible because we have the invisible and the visible world, but sometimes we need to tap in the things we can't see and we can't understand, and that's when wisdom comes. You know,
Yes.
so with your experience in strengthening school systems and supporting special education and literacy initiatives, what's one common mistakes you see schools make when trying to support struggling students?
So let me go back to what you were addressing as far as the
Mm-hmm.
parents,
Mm-hmm.
because as a school counselor, I did address whatever wounds the parent had as well. Because sometimes when you say, I need to meet you concerning little Johnny, it does become a parent to counselor meeting
Yes.
where the parent is like, I can't afford $120 per hour and I can't afford to take off for Johnny and myself. So let me
Mm,
get what you have. And so,
yes.
yes, many of those sessions do become a session for healing for the parent, as well as there are therapist programs out there a particular school that I work with qualified for a therapist in the school. Not only did they pick up the student during the day, but after school, they could work with the family. And so
Nice.
that's why we saw a lot of changes in education because the family as well got to be supported with any mental wealth challenges that they may have had. So, yes, you are absolutely right. Yes, if those parents are hurting, it's very difficult for them to be a part of their own child's
Mm,
process. And sometimes what we see happening to the child has also happened to the parent. So I had one parent say to me, well, no one was there to help me, and it became a meeting for her. It became a healing session for her. And so I worked with them, through that year, through their challenges, also to support not only the parent, but make sure I am supportive of that student. But that parent needed healing too. And we run into that as educators, lots of parents who do need that healing. And that is one aspect and one piece. When I talk about family and family engagement, it also means the concern of the parent as well. Some schools will have an education program, um, adult beginning education, ABE. Some will have a GED program so that they can get their GEDs. So that is also another, that is what I call the reactive approach to what has already happened. The proactive approach is started with children when they're very young. And the reactive approach is what is happening now and how we can work on that. Okay. So now your next question was about what is one of the um, biggest mistakes
yeah.
that
Yes.
schools
So
are
yeah.
making with
Hmm.
literacy.
Yes. With struggling students. So what's one
Yeah.
common mistake you see in schools that schools make when trying to support struggling students?
One thing that I see is during the day, there's the expectation that this amount of time is supposed to be on this, and then you jump to this, and then you jump to this. And what I'm looking at is the structure of systems. I'm very systematic. I learn systematically. I learn hands on and systematically. So when there is a good structure and system in place, learning happens. So many students who are having difficulties need that structure, and oftentimes they may need more time. 15 minutes of reading and a teacher is doing an activity may not be enough time. I don't think it is. I think 30 minutes should be allowed for reading and then the reading activity and then support and then making sure that your students understand. Oftentimes, because there are time periods where this needs to be done and that needs to be done, a short period of time is spent in reading. They'll go over the activity a little bit and then they're kind of released to themselves for peer to peer independent work. And then they want a certain amount of time for them to be on a computer. There are a lot of things that are happening during that, either 50 minutes or hour and a half. It depends on how the
Mm,
student has it timed out. And so, more systematic approaches that are structured. When I walk in the classroom, I'm looking to see what is the structure of the classroom. And if they say, well, 30, 30, 30, 30 minutes of education support, instruction, and training, 30 minutes of they have to do certain programming like a iReady or MBeam. These are progress monitoring types of programs. And then the last 30 minutes is like a small group where the teacher is working with the parent. And oftentimes this may be a middle school structure. Okay.
mm,
So that should be seen. It must be worked with fidelity. If you start getting out of that and then kids are on a computer for 45 minutes to an hour, they're losing. Science is saying right now, which I've always felt I'm not too big on students using a lot of Chromebooks throughout the day because it really to me hinders the learning, the stamina of learning, their ability to be able to sit, process, come up with their own thinking, ideas, inferencing. And so 30, 30, 30. I agree with that model. That model is okay, but it has to be worked with fidelity because if students start spending too much time independently, and then too much time on computers, it takes away from their learning. And right now, the science is saying two-thirds of students who do use computers for their learning are doing lower and poor on test assessments.
Totally agree with you. And I feel like this is so important that people like you go into schools to really bring that understanding, because sometimes when we don't have an expert like you who actually share their expertise, it's really hard for them to understand how they can actually better the student outcomes. So thank you so much, Dr. Avery, for sharing that. So for educators and leaders listening to us right now who are really passionate about making a difference, but sometimes they feel overwhelmed, what message of encouragement would you share about the impact they can have when the right systems and support are in place? What can you tell them?
When the right systems and support are in place, I feel like even when the right systems and support is not in place, because education fluctuates.
Mm,
You can have assistance and support for 1 to 2 years. They can grant your school certain programs, and you're like, oh my God, this is great. And then all of a sudden, that funding is taken away. So we can't like teetle toddle, with every change that comes and goes. You do have to take some time for yourself, if it's nothing but 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And then when you're off, sometimes we love to focus on, looking at our phones and laughing and taking pictures and posting. And sometimes posts can take a long time. You're trying to refine that picture and all. Sometimes it just means put everything away, get in a
mm,
still, quiet space, and just sit. Not even sit to reflect, because reflection is work. It's not even sit and think about what you're going to do the next day, planning, no reflection. Just sit in quiet for 10 to 15 minutes. And I think we can do that every day. We can find that 10 to 15 minutes. We can find that 45 minutes to an hour to meditate, to think on some good things. That's what the word God says for us. Think on these things that are good, that are a good report, that are lovely. And oftentimes it helps our brains to detox, to calm down, to get us back refocused. Because if we don't do that, and I understand this because I like to make sure everything is done and in place and all of that. You can spend a lot of time in that, and it can actually cause you to have certain wellness challenges
mm.
mentally, where you lose sleep and you toss and you turn and you're tired. So always take care of yourself, even in these systems, whether the system is supported and in place, and whether it's not.
I love it. I love that we can just pause and just pause to not reflect, but to really be quiet and disconnect. So
Mhm.
pause to disconnect. And I feel it's so needed. Anyone listening to us, we are here to ignite you so you can make a difference in the world the same way Dr. Nakia is making a difference. She's found her message. She's making an impact in the school community. So if you want to grow into your entrepreneurial journey and you want to grow from educator to CEO, I encourage you to join my free masterclass. Click on the link in the comment section and connect with Dr. Nakia if you want any other answers from your questions. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Dr. Nakia, for being part of what we are doing. And I see you in the next episode, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and make sure you connect with us on Instagram at The Case for Success. Check also my link tree and become an affiliate of the Success Guide for Teens Academy, a program that will empower your school community as a parent, teacher, and high school senior leader. Do not hesitate to reach out, comment, and share. Until then, see you in the next episodes.